Hey everyone, hope all is well. I've not done a video in a while. I was in the hospital recently, and well, work kind of is always there and always keeps you busy. So I wanted to do this video for a couple of reasons. Number one, wanted to show you some vinyl finds that I thought were exceptional, were really cool. And the other, I'm actually on my way out to pick up a new old receiver. I've started collecting receivers and doing so what I would call on the cheap. And what is helpful, and hopefully I'm going to help you guys out in your haggling and negotiating, knowledge is power. So there's a couple of different ways to barter and to haggle. Number one is what I call the low EQ, or the low emotional intelligence way to barter, and that's what you see on these scumbag shows like Pawn Stars and American Pickers, and everyone thinks they're a wheeler dealer. So what you end up with is kind of a, what I call a teeter-totter, going back and forth, back and forth. Some people enjoy that and get off on it. I don't enjoy that. Myself, I'd rather use what I call a high EQ, or a high emotional intelligence system. And what that does is it level sets, and it sets the playing field. So usually if you're dealing with, let's say, someone on Facebook Marketplace, and they've owned something forever, and they want to get rid of it, and they think they have the next holy grail. Don't use, well, it's selling on eBay for X, and walk away from a seller who's using that because they think they're sitting on something that's worth a fortune. Take it a step further and see what these things have sold for on eBay, and leverage that. When you're picking up a receiver, or you're interested in a receiver, tell the seller it's going to need certain things. It may need something like a dial lamp, or you may want to convert those dial lamps to LEDs so that they run cooler. Or you can always use the trusty capacitor argument. You know, it's going to need all new capacitors, and some of these guys, they'll just go in a panic mode. I actually had to explain to someone at the local Restore, Habitat for Humanity store, what a capacitor was, because he had powered up this vintage Philco receiver, which, you know, number one, I told him, don't power up something that old, just don't. And then he said, well, it kind of works, but I think a tube or two is blown out. Tubes don't really blow out. They degrade over time and over the decades. So I showed him where the electrolytics were located, the filter caps, and he was like, oh. I said, well, let me think about it. But, you know, I walked away. He essentially turned that vintage radio into a brick. So the other thing I wanted to point out, and we're going to get to the vinyl in a minute. When you buy records from a thrift store like a Salvation Army or Savers or Goodwill, essentially you're making a donation. You're not buying an item. That item was donated. These stores are getting wise now and they're getting it. So my local Savers is still 99 cents, with some exceptions. If it's a exceptionally desirable title, they might mark it up to $2 or $3. There's a Savers about halfway between my home and my office. I stop there often on the way home from work, and I've had some great buys there, but now their vinyl has gone up to, well, I think it's $3.99. Luckily I had one of those 20% off deals because I buy so much stuff there. But I'm going to show you this vinyl. I thought these were really killer finds. I guess my point here on vinyl is don't get too upset thinking that, you know, let's face it, they've caught on to the fact that vinyl is back and vintage components are back. It is what it is. I mean, the prices are going to go up. In some cases, you don't mind paying maybe $2, $3, or $4 if it's a good title. You don't have to buy everything in sight. And one other point, I saw this guy, and honest to God, I wanted to say to him, you know, what do you expect for $1 a piece, buddy? He's going through the titles at the local Saver store. He's holding it up to light. He's checking the condition. He's looking it up on his phone. That's not very fun. And, you know, additionally, you might get lucky once in a while, but thrift store vinyl is thrift store vinyl. If you're afraid that your stylus and cartridge aren't going to play it, you might want to make an upgrade. Or, you might want to go for a linear turntable like this nice Sansui that I bought at my local Goodwill a few years ago. So, anywho, here we go. The best of West Montgomery. I don't know if I have any of this guy's stuff. This is on the Verve label. It's got a really nice gatefold. I already cleaned and packaged these, so. Another West Montgomery road song on A&M. This might be one of his last albums. I'm not sure. I know it's a later one. I know a little bit about West Montgomery. I know that he passed away from a heart attack when he was still quite young. This next one, this is like a grail to me. Even though some nitpickers might say it's not his best album, to find this out in the wild and to find it in beautiful condition, bb.king, Mr. Blues. From what I can gather, this is an original pressing on ABC Paramount. Here he is, Mr. Blues, with Lucille. Trying to find this stuff up here in New England, it's like finding hen's teeth. The next one, this is another little grail. The Doors, Absolutely Live. This is a 2-record set. I understand from what I've read and what I've seen, this is supposed to be a fantastic live album, which was actually edited from a couple of different performances, but it's The Doors. Let's get that iconic cover that Jim Morrison complained about when Elektra released this. They used an old photo and they didn't want to use bloated Jim Morrison, so he was upset with that. Another grail, James Brown, Hell. This is also a 2-disc set on Polydor. He's too strong. We can't stop him. That's because he's the godfather. And there he is, the godfather of soul, James Brown. Trying to find any James Brown in New England. You can't do it. And this last one, I used to see these around. This is a Maxell jazz sampler. I think this came out about 1979 or so. And look at it, it's so old. They're calling it XL2 C90 UD, high level bias, normal bias, low noise. This might be a metal Maxell UD ultra dynamic. And look at, guys, there's an 8-track tape, 8-track, and then of course we've got reel-to-reels. So Maxell jazz sampler, limited edition stereo recording. That's on the RCA label. So those are my recent finds. I've got another, I need to do another video. I picked up just over 20 pieces of vinyl, and they were great finds and great buys, most of them at $0.10 a piece. So take care for now. I hope you learned something on this video. I'm going to post it, and I'm sure I'll get I'm doing it all wrongs, but that's the internet for you in 2019. Take care for now.